Has anyone ever noticed that when Cenk Uygur talks about anything international, he falls completely on his face? For as good as he is on domestic issues and domestic occurrences, he's great. But as soon as he steps out of the United States, he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Here's a prime example. The DPRK recently released a video where they opened a new fitness center for people to come in and exercise. What's the logical response to this? Claiming it's for rich people only, but of course rich people don't exist in North Korea because everybody's poor and nobody has anything, and then claim it's part of this city that's just for the rich elite, which is complete BS and completely fabricated. I haven't even heard that accusation before. This may have been completely fabricated by Cenk himself. Although it was actually Anna who said it, I feel that Young Turks probably actually completely fabricated this. And it's one of those like ridiculous things that you can say about North Korea and do absolutely nothing to back it up and expect it to be taken as truth. So what does he say? He says North Koreans don't need a fitness center because they're starving. So there could possibly not be any other use for a fitness center. Not to mention the fact that, well, with the weather disasters that have made the situation so bad, the typhoon, the drought, and then the floods. So that means there, shouldn't be fitness centers in the country? There's starvation in the United States. There's hunger in the United States. And yet there's fitness centers. So what, we could turn around and make the same criticism of the United States? I mean, people also go to a fitness center to stay fit. People don't just go there to lose weight. How many people do you see in a gym that actually are fat? Not many. Okay, the rest of the world uses fitness centers to stay fit, to get fit, to build muscle. That's what most men actually use it for. But Cenk, you've never hit the gym. To my knowledge, never hit the gym. You are an overweight man. So am I. Keeping it real, dog. But the only thing that a gym could possibly do would be to cure overweightness. Now, you know the rest of the world uses it to keep fit. But not in the American eyes. In the American eyes, it's only gyms are used to lose weight because the country's so goddamn fat. That the only reason a gym could exist would be for people to lose weight, even though the rest of the world uses it to be fit, not to not be fat. This is one of those things where you take an American perception of a privileged elite within the world, the United States, or the world, the first world more specifically, and then project that on the rest of the world. It's just like that whole thing he did with 9/11, where South Koreans, I believe it was the South Koreans, designed this tower. It looked vaguely like the Twin Towers in New York. Says, oh man, how could you not know that this looked like the Twin Towers? Because the rest of the world doesn't go around thinking about 9/11. Hell, even Afghanistan, from the study shows, was it 95, 98% of the population of Afghanistan never even knew 9/11 happened. The whole reason why their country is being invaded and murdered. They don't know about it. Even they are not thinking about 9/11 all the time. You are, because you're an American and it happened there. But then what you do is you go and project that onto everybody else. The rest of the world doesn't think the way you do. We, people outside of the United States, don't go around thinking about 9/11 all the time. And this is exactly what Cenk is doing. He's taking the American perception that gyms are for people not to combat being fat and project that onto every other country, even countries that don't have an obesity problem. It would make no sense to have an anti-obesity anything in North Korea. So that's not what they're doing. That's not the point of the gym there. The gym is for people to be healthy. North Korea does something to help people be healthy, and they're criticized for it. If they didn't do anything to help people be healthy, then they'd be criticized for it. It's one of these effing ridiculous double standards that's dumped on North Korea. Oh, it's too dark because of a sparse population that's largely rural. So they go and build buildings that have more lights on them. And then it's whoa, why are they wasting all this stuff on these buildings? It's a ridiculous effing double standard that's dumped on them all the time. You know, it's 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 just insane listening to this coming from an overweight person like Cenk. And as I say, I'm overweight too. Keeping it real. But I mean, come on, they're not just for fat people. The rest of the world uses them to keep in fitness. That's why, to keep fit. That's why it's called a fitness center and not a drop American fat ass center. And then resorts to, a petty insult. Oh, Kim Jong-un, you're the only fat person in the country. Fitness centers aren't needed by the people. Ridiculous. And then he has the audacity to actually go on there and say it's the most despicable country in the world. North Korea is the most despicable country in the world, according to Cenk. Really. The United States, which has murdered hundreds of millions of people for the position of privilege that it has, and then murders untold millions in order to maintain that position of privilege, is what? Not as bad as North Korea, that's never actually declared war on anybody? I mean, is that really the comparison that you're actually trying to make? The country that was at war with what? Basically a civil war between the North and the South in their own country, as opposed to what? America that has stomped across the entire world, murdering millions for 100 years? That went through and stole half of Mexico? The same country that tried to exterminate its entire native population? From the country that built itself off the backs of 150 million dead slaves? And North Korea is worse than that. Don't even take all the other wars, like say the invasion of the Philippines. They killed about 650,000 people. Never count that. Or backing dictators in the third world that have murdered millions. In all kinds of countries all across the entire world. In the entire war crime that was the Vietnam War. But no, North Korea is the worst country in the world. When it's a proven fact that this year a black person has been killed by the police once every 24 hours. Every 24 hours in the United States, a black person is murdered by police. Usually for something that was completely innocuous and meaningless. He was just stopped and somehow it turned fatal. I could give you unending examples of this happening. But North Korea is the most despicable country in the world. Really. It's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, we'll let people out of the labor camps so they won't be starving. Actually, the hunger is coming from the natural disasters that have been hitting the country, which, by the way, your country is making worse by placing sanctions and blockades on them. Your sanctions preventing them from buying food. Oh, but no, North Korea is the bad country. For someone who's so critical of the United States, of the government, he turns a complete blind eye when it doesn't support a liberal position. When it doesn't help out the liberal cause, completely looks the other way. This is those moments when liberals are just as bad as conservatives. And that's exactly what this is right here. Cenk, stop talking about other countries, particularly North Korea. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't even go off onto these labor camps. You mean, labor camps, we're prison where you perform labor. Oh, but everybody's starving with absolutely nothing to back it up, and pictures of collective farms and past office prison camps. You know what's really telling about a lot of the pictures of these so-called prison camps from satellite photos? They don't have fences around them for some reason. You would think that a prison, as horrible as they are in North Korea, would have a goddamn fence around it. I could do a lot of things. I could point to the FEMA camps in the United States, which are real, by the way. Or I could point to the fact that you have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. Most of which is because somebody wanted to get high off of weed, and someone's supplying that person with that weed. I mean, like, you remember that, right? The United States has the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, and over a petty, meaningless thing as trying to get high. But of course, turn around and criticize North Korea. Everybody in jail is in jail because why? Because they disagreed with the government. That's right. The entire prison population is everybody who disagreed with the government. Nobody actually breaks the law in North Korea. Of course not. Because human nature is inherently bad and we have to use capitalism. But for some reason in a communist country, nobody does anything bad, and the only people who go to jail are people who disagree with the government. And the utter stupidity behind that. To the Young Turks, try not talking about other countries. You're horrible at it. You know nothing. Look at the situation that's going on in Spain and everything that's going on. The strikes, the social unrest, the rioting. And what did they do at Video One? Oh, prostitutes went on strike. And they get all giddy over the mention of prostitutes. It's ridiculous. I really shouldn't expect anyone in any form of U.S. media to have any idea what they're talking about when it comes to North Korea. Because they've done nothing but prove how completely disconnected from reality they are. And just how completely full of BS they are. Oh. And one more thing. Defend DPRK Week 2 begins tomorrow.